guys, it's Kelly here and I am back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Pretty Pink Posh. This is actually part of their February release video hop, so there's prizes to be won. We'll cover that in just a second. I'm using the Chick holder die, the springtime editions, the raindrop stencils, the stitched clouds. I think I covered them all. And I'm cutting everything out of white, so that way I can color it to be how I would like. I recently bought a platinum scout, so that I could die cut more on screen, because the regular platinum is pretty cumbersome to bring over to the tabletop. So that is why you see me cutting them into like smaller strips. I'm still getting used to that. This grass die is actually part of my, what is it? It's the Shadow Box. Yeah, the Shadow Box die set, which I haven't even had a chance to use as a Shadow Box yet. I need to do that. But anyway, so I'm just stacking it next to each other so that I will be able to cut out my grasses. And I'm cutting out 2 layers of grasses, but Pretty Pink Posh actually has a full grass border, so I will link that below as well. I just, you work with what you got, and I don't have that one. I have this one, and this worked for my needs just fine to be able to cut my grasses. Can you believe that we're already making springtime cards? I cannot believe it. But also I have like 1,000 feet of snow outside my door because I live in Cleveland, and I'm ready for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So with the little Chick holder die, I love the way that these are set up, because the eyeballs, see, look at how this metal die is set up. He almost looks like he's wearing like a little superhero mask, but that gives perfect placement for the little eyeballs every time. So you just lay, the eyeballs are like in this die bar, and then you just lay it on top there, and it will cut the eyeballs out evenly spaced and everything for you, and it's fantastic. So let's talk about the background a little bit. I wanted to, we're coming up on springtime, crazy, wild. We're coming up on it. And so I wanted to use this kind of like raindrop background. So it looks like our little Chick is kind of like walking out of a storm into the sun. And so I'm going to cover a couple different techniques that you could use that with. Before we get too far in, I do want to make sure to mention the giveaway. They are giving away a $20 gift card on every single stop on the hop. You have to comment to win by February 10th. And so the more you hop, the better your chances are to win and get a gift card and buy some adorable Pretty Pink Posh stuff. All right, so I am working with Distress ink because it can work with water. And that's one of the tricks that we can use to help us get a kind of a rain scene pretty easily. You can use any dye ink. Those will, the ones that are like pigment inks or that are like solvent based, like archival inks, though this will not, that part of the technique will not work for that. But any sort of water-based dye ink will. So like I said, I wanted it to look like he was going from the the little rainstorm into the sunlight. So I did my darker colors in the top left corner, and then I'm fading it off from that salty ocean to the salvaged patina for it to be getting lighter. And then I'm using a sticky mat to hold my stencil in place. I am putting it at an angle, so it looks like my raindrops are kind of falling at an angle. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to go in with my salty ocean. I'm being very light-handed. I'm not picking up a ton of ink, but this way we'll be able to see the raindrops in the lighter areas. We want this to be really soft. And then we're going to go in and we're going to use a little bit of water to make it so that we can see the raindrops in the darker areas. So this is just a regular paper towel, Costco brand, because my husband buys everything in bulk. And so I spritzed it with a little bit of water, and then I'm just kind of dabbing those raindrops, and that water is going to lift that pigment just a little bit, and then it's going to give us kind of like a watermark. And that way we'll be able to see the raindrops in the dark section. Now you can do this with the baby wipe so that you don't have to spritz a paper towel. You can also do it with like a slightly damp washcloth. Either of those, any of those will work. You can also, if you get impatient like I am, you can, this is at great risk to your card, I'm just being honest with you, you can lightly spritz it. If you trust your mister enough, you can lightly spritz it to put some water down and then blot it up. And then so once you're happy with the amount of color that is being picked up, then you can leave it like that, honestly, or you can move on to the next step. You guys know that I love the glitters, and so I am using a shimmer pen, and I'm going over each one of my raindrops. This is going to add glitter to it, but it's also going to add moisture and kind of move that pigment around a little bit. If you watch my previous videos, you hear me say all the time, like, hey, be aware when you're using your shimmer pen, like the distress ink will react to the moisture in the pen. Well, in this case, that's going to work to our benefit and help to kind of move that pigment around in the raindrops. Another option you have is to accent them with a highlight. So here I'm going in and I am using my white gel pen along the bottom, like the round part of the raindrop. And at first I was like, ooh, this is a little over the top. So then I like put it down and then I just like dabbed it with my finger. And that was enough to add a little bit of a highlight without it being too over the top. Another option, there's so many, you can do all of them, you can do some of them, you can do one of them, like whatever works for the card that you're working on, is once you get them stenciled down, you can go in with some alcohol markers or another coloring medium. You could use colored pencils or whatever you prefer, and you can add a little bit of subtle shading to your raindrop. And then you can see I have darker colors up at the top. I'm getting lighter colors as we go towards the bottom. And this is going to make our raindrops more prevalent, but not like in your face. So I'm adding the darkest part to that round part at the bottom, and then I'm kind of just blending it up and flicking it up in that raindrop, teardrop kind of sort of shape. And so those, like I said, you can do all of them, you can do none of them. Those are a couple of different ways that you can get a more subtle kind of raindrop background. And you'll see when we start to put the card together, like you could even just leave it like that, like sans chick, no chick necessary. You could just do the flowers and it would be a cute card. For my grasses, I am going to ink blend, honestly, just because it's the fastest way to cover the cardstock. You could cut out of colored cardstock, but I'm an old school girly, and when I first started card making, I didn't have money for all of the things. So I didn't invest in colored cardstock, I invested in inks. So this is my go-to. This is obviously very sped up. But I'm just concentrating the darker ink toward the bottom. So I started with the Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, Rustic Wilderness, and then I like to do mine twice. So from the Rustic Wilderness back to the Mowed Lawn, back to the Twisted Citron. For my clouds, I'm just using my seasoned ink blender, like the blue from a Salty Ocean that's on there, to add a little bit of color to my clouds. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my chick. This is my yellow, which is seasoned with mustard seed. And so I went in and did just what was ever left over on my brush, really nice and light. And then I picked up a little bit more of that ink and went around the outside edge. So his face is really light, but the outside of his body has a little bit more color. Now here, what I'm doing is I'm marking just with little dots, like the lowest points of my grasses, because I'm going to have 2 layers. So I'm marking the lowest point so I know where I need to put my darkest color. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a little bit of flicking to create grasses. Rule of thumb with grasses, the longer your stroke, the more wild, the more in nature your grass is going to look. So if you want it to be a little bit more of a manicured lawn, you want shorter strokes. If you want it to be more of a jungle type feel, you want longer strokes. And then once I have the darkest color, I'm going to go back in with my medium color and then back in with my lightest color. Each time I'm going over the previous color so that we're getting a nice color variation with lots of different strokes over that green. And then it's going to give us lots of texture in our scene. For our little chickadee, he has these cute little legs, which I kept getting I kept getting backwards. I kept having to like double check them. And then he also has a beak that's going to go on him. So for the feet, I did an E99, a YR24, and a Y08. So this is more of like a golden-ish, like yellow. And that's going to be for the feet. I'm going to switch it up and do it for the orange for the beak. And then for him, I'm just going to do a dark yellow and a light yellow. So he's a holder. Pretty Pink Pouch has a lot of these. I think they're really, really cute. They're meant to hold a lot of different items. I think the one for January was a ladybug. And then there was a gingerbread man. They're all very darling, and they're meant to hold different things. I'm going to be honest with you. I love the holders, but what I love even more is the edition sets, because you can use them with the holders or you can use them by themselves. Like, they're fully functioning dies. There's like a holiday edition set, this one's the springtime edition set, and it's got all these it's got like a little flower pot in it, and this umbrella, these flowers. Like, there's a lot that can be done with just the edition set. So once I have colored the little beak and the feet, I'm going to go ahead and glue those on so I don't have to chase them all over my desk, because if you're not new here, then you know how much I love that. And then I'm going to go into coloring the umbrella. So the umbrella actually has a base layer, and then it has like the different segments on top. Again, because I'm not a person who loves chasing around the die cuts, I'm just coloring the base layer with 3 different colors. I did bring in a darker orange because I felt like I wasn't going to have enough contrast. And then how did I choose my colors? Because I know I already have the blue in the sky and the orange in the umbrella. And the green in the grass. So that just made sense. I'm just repeating the same colors that I have. A lot of times when we have scenes where we have a lot of things going on, but we don't want it to look busy, repeating the same colors is going to help everything look like super copacetic and like it goes together. When you start bringing in like a lot of different colors, it can start to look kind of chaotic. So I just kept it super simple and repeated those same colors. And then I'm using, like I said, these are the blues that I showed you. They're also the same blues that I used for the raindrops. I just didn't show them to you at the time. I apologize. So as I'm doing this voiceover, everybody else in my household is sleeping. Here I'm choosing the cool grays, one, because they're just my preferred grays, but also because I like a gray and yellow together, and this handle of this umbrella is going to lay right across my yellow chick. So that is how I was like, I will like that better. And it will not be as aggressive. Like, it won't be as aggressive as a contrast as a black would be. This coloring is definitely sped up a little bit. I'm just letting you know, a lot of it. So anyway, as I'm doing this voiceover, everybody in my household is sleeping. And my old lady dog, does not like to be apart from me. But this late at night, after she's already gone, like I've already let her out for the last time, and after I'm done with this, I myself am taking my tushy to bed. She's kind of like a pain to get up and down the stairs. It's not her fault. She has mobility issues. Let's go back to the card. So here with the flowers, the points where they dip in is where I'm adding my darkest shading. That's true of the tulips, of the daisy looking flowers, and of the, I don't know what those are, those little round ones. And I'm just doing like a little flick of my darkest color in those like crevices where it dips down. And then I'm blending it out with the next colors. This is going to give these little teeny tiny flowers a ton of dimension. This one kind of looks like a little peppermint swirl candy, and then when you add the next color, it starts to look a little bit more like a pinwheel. And then the third color is pretty much going to fill everything in except for the lightest part of the petals, which would be on the outside edge. For the daisy one, we only use 2 colors because we're coloring that white, and when you're coloring something white, we're just adding the shadows. For these little bits, like these are the centers of the flowers, but those 2 big circles are the eyes. That's why we colored them that gray color. And then we did the light yellow and the dark yellow. I'll be honest with you, I did not love the way the light yellow looked on our like little buttercup flower, so I ended up changing it to the E99. Anyway, so my old lady has mobility issues and I have to like half carry her up and down the stairs, which is fine. I don't mind, but it is more challenging to do when everybody is sleeping because, you're trying to be quiet. So I've let her out for the last time. I am leaving her downstairs, and I am going to bed. She used to sleep in a crate in my room, but she doesn't really like that. So I try to leave her out if I can. And so she can hear me talking and she thinks she's missing out on something. So she starts barking. And you guys know if you come here that I have a little still. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, like you have to stop barking. So then I have to run downstairs and be like, be quiet, old lady. I love you, but now is not the time. And then I have to come back upstairs. So I'm like running 2 flights of stairs in the middle of the night and trying to do this voiceover. And I feel like I am breathing heavy. Like I am breathing heavy in your ears from running up and down the stairs. I have been working out more, but apparently I have not increased my lung capacity. So now here, everything is colored. I'm putting them all together. This bouquet, the reason why it looks the way it does is because it's meant to be a holder. So it's meant to be a flower bouquet that our little chick holds in his hand. And I'm using them to like plant little flowers in my grasses. And so I just wanted to explain why that looked the way it looked. And then here, see, like, look at our little rain scene with the little clouds. And then when you put the little grasses in, like, I really feel like you could put anything in that little scene. Like, you could just put your little flowers in there with a little encouraging sentiment. And it would be a super cute card with just like the rain coming down. I think it's adorable. You'll have to tell me what you think in the comments. And then because I have chosen to do the long side of the card, what is that? 5.5? Yeah, 5.5 inches with the grasses. The reason I did that is so that they wouldn't line up exactly where the die cuts met, kind of like trick the eye into like not thinking they're the same thing, even though they are the same thing. And so I had to trim off the excess before I could glue on the next part. And then as I was doing it, I realized that I needed to actually put my chicken there in between the little grasses. So I glued him down and then put in his little eyeballs. I have no regrets about the gray. I think that was a good choice. And then I'll be able to like put in my little flowers and just continue on. I did want to note that there's 3 flowers that don't have stems. I just added a leaf to those and put them like in the front lawn, and in the tree lawn, in the front area. So it would balance out, with the color. And then for the sentiment, I don't have this. They have a new spring one. I don't have that one. But what I do have is the summertime sentiments. And so this one said, wishing you sunny days. And I thought that was very fitting because we're walking out of the storm into the sun. So I white heat embossed that on some green cardstock. And here, the white was a little bit glaring on my raindrop. So I just went in. You can do this after it is dry. I just went in with one of my lighter blues and just went over top of that. And that just knocked it back a little bit. I added shimmer to my umbrella and my flowers, and then I added some white highlights to his eyes, his nose, the umbrella handle. I'm going to do a little design on each section of the umbrella. I tried to make them different, but honestly, I think the one in the middle, like one's straight plaid and one is a diagonal, and they look very similar, but I'm fine. As long as they have a pattern and it's just something that makes them more interesting. If I had to do it again, I would have just repeated the polka dot pattern. Or I wouldn't have done the polka dot at all, and I would have done the stripe on all 3 of them. But nonetheless, it's done and it's still cute. And then I also used the white gel pen to add highlights to like the center of the flowers. And then on the tulips, I just did like a couple of dots on the bottom just to make them a little bit more interesting. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope this inspires you with your upcoming like spring and rain time cards. To make some super cute backgrounds where you can actually see the raindrops. And then don't forget to leave your comment and continue along the hop so that way you have your chance to win. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.